Okay, I'm going to try to stay in one spot. I usually like to move around a lot, and everybody who knows me knows I've got a lot of energy. And on a Monday morning, so I know that you all got up early just to come hear me talk first today. And I know Stuart and Don had dinner together last night. They didn't invite me because they wanted to talk about me and my boss and how they're going to refute everything that I tell you. And I do want to note that the State Board of Food and Agriculture was actually established before there was a Department of Food and Agriculture, and Don Cameron was not the chair of the board at that time. So I'm really glad to see you all, and Sarah, thank you, you and your team. You have grown so rapidly in your presence on the West Coast and especially in California. So I just have to say congratulations to you. I remember walking the halls of USDA reminding people when they all left for the day, that there was still over half of the value of agriculture that was still hard at work at their time. And so it's really important for the kinds of crops, the kinds of value, and the kinds of innovation that we have a really strong presence of people who are dedicated to covering the agricultural stories that are out there and the issues that impact us all, including every American who may not realize it on a daily basis. So I'm going to talk about just a couple of things today, because I do want to set the stage. I'm not going to talk about water very much because you're fortunate to have our Director of the Department of Water Resources, Carla Namath, as your lunchtime speaker. But I do want to acknowledge it is her leadership, her vision, the great team that she has, and the way that she worked from her first day as director of really bringing together a more integrated approach to water management. And this year has proven the importance of doing that by not having flood over here, drought over here, dam operations over here, and really with the implementation of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, another talented team. And what has happened this year is using more real-time information, working closely with the Corps of Engineers and the feds, better management in real time of dams, how much water can go in, how much water can come out, as we have better projections on what that snowmelt's going to be. And from the early days of what we knew, we're going to be this kind of an atmospheric river that will be part of our 30-year history, who knows, 5 or 6 times during that 30 years, of being able to say, we're going to keep every drop in this basin that we possibly can. And I am really pleased to say that it's estimated at least 3.3 million acre-feet of water is being put underground. Our capacity for underground storage is finally being realized. And if it weren't for the Don Camerons of the world who over 10 years ago when his neighbors thought he was crazy, really showing what is possible and investing in the infrastructure, which I think this will really unleash new infrastructure for that. So I'm going to say those kinds of innovations, government working better, partnerships like what Don did with Sustainable Conservation and other environmental organizations are really proving out a lot of new models for us that are solutions on the land and that are really and truly part of our natural working land strategy for specialty crops. Although in the drought in 2021, we set a new record of farm gate value of $51.1 billion. $22 billion in exports in a year that I thought was really not going to be that good. However, the farmers and ranchers of the state did it, working with processors and marketers. Thank you for that kind of dedication, for that kind of value. And of course, I always have to be the first one to say $51.1 billion in farm gate values does not take into account the increased costs of everything that a farmer had to use in getting to that place. So that doesn't necessarily reflect the profitability, and I think that's an important thing for us all to remember as we look at what crops we are growing in the state and what those markets are going to be about. But I am very optimistic about how the state has recognized that agriculture is an important, critical part of our future. And I would say the investment that we've made in climate-smart agriculture in the last decade is proof of that. We have invested almost $1 billion in climate-smart ag programs, over $530 million through the Department of Food and Agriculture through healthy soils, on-farm water use conservation, pollinator habitat, and livestock methane reductions. Over $300 million just in the methane programs themselves, because a dairy cow is the original recycler. That is important because Agriculture, with just the funds that we've invested, has already reduced our greenhouse gas emissions by almost 30 million metric ton CO2 equivalents and saved 489 billion gallons of water. The precision of how we are using our water, the precision of how we're improving our energy efficiency, which also improves both of those practices, also improve our nutrient management, are all ways that we can continue to be not only successful but sustainable in the future. I want to call out also that while we're investing in climate-smart agriculture and production practices on the farm to really support farmers in making these transitions to a zero-carbon economy, we're also investing in the marketplace, building the demand for the products that are grown by our farmers. Few people recognize the statistics in California, which really are similar to the statistics nationally. 70% of California farms are less than 100 acres. Almost 89% are less than 500 acres. And that's true across the nation. About 20% of our farms produce the vast amount, the volume of food and revenues, and the rest are much smaller scale farms. Keeping small farms in business is important for local communities. And we are making those investments with our farm-to-school programs, really building that demand through local procurement through our schools with the investments that we're making, not only the hundreds of millions of dollars at the Department of Education, but also the $60 million in grants that we put out for farmers, for local schools, to be able to match make where what's growing in their local area can be easily accessed, and experiential learning. Those are all ways of building demand. And that I wanted to comment on because what I'm going to talk about today, and Janae and Don from the State Board will be very proud of me, I want to talk about AgVision. AgVision is a process that we started actually when I served on the State Board of Food and Agriculture starting in 2009. And it is about how do we work together as 400 different commodities in every corner of the state and every scale and every standard of practice. How do we work together and unify around making good things happen? So we established AgVision at that time, which was Vision 2020. And we updated it in 2017. And then we realized in 2020 that 2020 was here and we had to go through the process of updating it during COVID. So what would have normally been a one-year process was a two-year process. Extensive interviews, hundreds of people came around roundtable discussions that we hosted. And we also, for the first time, included interviews with my colleagues in the agencies in state government. And what everyone agreed upon is that agriculture is about growing opportunities for farmers, for ranchers, for farm workers, and for communities. That investments in agriculture generate opportunities for the people who are there. And we do it in a multitude of ways. Our purpose statement is still what it has always been, and that is we make California a better place to live because of what we grow and how we grow it. That acknowledgement of the stewardship of all of our farmers and ranchers and being able to produce the bounty that we do. Our 5 strategic goals out of all of this are: 1, continuing to build local, resilient, regenerative food systems. And that's where farm to school and increasingly other large-scale institutional procurement plays an important role. We now have on staff 12 regional navigators to help do that matchmaking, to really raise up what people know about. We know that we can continue to do that kind of work with the kind of cooperation that we have across agencies, and we know that that will be supported with the recent USDA announcement of UC-ANR as the leader of the Southwest Local Food System Business Center for 4 states, and the $38 million that's been awarded to the state of California through Department of Food and Agriculture for more local food processing, food procurement, and business systems. Second is, we are about local, healthy communities. That can be what we do, and I'm looking at Sunterra here, Steve here, who we've changed the food box because of the last AgVision when we got more produce into food boxes than had ever appeared before, and we've helped that happen nationally. Our dairy sector's now in those food boxes. Local procurement and farmers continuing, even during COVID, to be major contributors And now we can do purchases for more culturally appropriate foods at local systems. Over 29 million tons of food donated by farmers, which surpasses even before COVID time. We also know that's where the sustainable pest management work will belong. Being the best neighbors possible with the sustainability of how we manage our pests, but we also know we need more tools in the toolbox. It's a roadmap for 2050 that allows us the time and the capital to realize biological solutions and softer chemistries to achieve sustainable pest management. 3, one I get very excited about in our partnership with Western Growers, and now Ag Council also has a piece of this. This is the investment of next generation talent and tools. We just finished our 8th workshop on ag tech with community colleges in the last year with Western Growers. It's fantastic to bring industry onto the campuses with the students, with the educators, to really understand what are the jobs of the future, what are employers looking for now, and where do we see those future jobs, and really building out a system, including the curriculum to go with it. Western Growers has a grant for doing that curriculum. They've done a great job on that. We want to continue that work and take the next step with workforce development to really focus on the jobs of the future and partnering with our university systems. One of our strategies here is the hope that we can create a master plan for agricultural science, research, and education with UC, CSU, which is not Colorado State University, for anybody who's not from California. That's our California State University system, and community colleges. This is an important, seamless way of approaching talent and tools for the future. We know with the swiftness of technology, we're going to have to do more training on an annual basis to really upskill the current workforce and make sure that we can keep up with the technology. Don't get me started on AI right now. Not artificial insemination. It's the other AI. Obviously, a recurring theme for ag is we want to enhance the public's understanding and appreciation for agriculture. And this is where our investment in California Grown, and if you're not a member of California Grown, please join. Great social media campaigns. It's about the people and the storytelling and capitalizing on the influencers in the system who really see firsthand what we're doing and help tell that story. And finally, our goal for smarter regulations. We have a small pilot project that's been funded in the budget. It's a partnership with EPA. Secretary Garcia is an enthusiastic fan of this. We're doing a very small project with the State Water Resources Control Board, really trying to look at, with the Agricultural Lands Program, Food Safety Modernization Act, and other systems, the duplicity, the redundancy of reporting. How can we reduce that? How can we make complying simpler and therefore hopefully less expensive? Those are the 5 objectives that we're trying to achieve, but it's going to require everyone working together. And we have the ingredients in the state. This state has a public university system like no other. I'm very proud of our university system. Yes, I'm from UNL. That would be the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, but I was an English major. So I'll just leave it at that. We have the intellectual capacity to take on these kinds of challenges. We are leading on climate-smart agriculture. Our state has set goals for natural working lands to be part of the solution. We can reduce our own greenhouse gas emissions, and we can be part of the solution by sequestering carbon. We can do that. We can, in fact, have local, thriving food systems that do not come at the expense of being the world's #1 exporter of what the world wants most, and that is California Grown. So I touched on a lot of things. Hope I didn't bore you to death. I don't know that I left time for questions, but I'd love to if there is time. But I also have to respect the clock. Sarah.
Let's just go for one question if we could, because I think you can all see how important it is to have Secretary Ross leading such an influential department, and we really appreciate your leadership. Yep. The one thing I would like to ask as Spencer starts to bring his next panel together is Because of your experience in Washington and your involvement in the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, you know that you've got a set of priorities in this next Farm Bill. Since we're going to be talking about that later, would you share a little bit about what impact you think you'd like to have in the Farm Bill from a specialty crop or California perspective?
Sure. So a lot of our priorities from the state, and the state of California historically has worked cross-agency. We've done extensive outreach to create our position paper, which is signed off by my sister agencies and myself. We really, first of all, look at the nutrition title because it is where most of the money is spent. Our specialty crops are vital to the health and nutrition of Americans, and so that's a really important title for all of us, and we want to see that continue. After that, everything is like equal. Like, I don't want to pick my child here, or my favorite dessert either. But really important, when we think about the challenges we're facing, a bigger investment in the conservation title brings so much environmental good. The nutrition title is the social good that agriculture contributes to society. The conservation title is the environmental contribution of agriculture to society. It is our practices that can improve water quality, that can improve air quality, that can improve habitat. This is what we know about working and partnering with farmers, and that's why so many conservation groups have become strong partners and advocates of agriculture in California. And then we have to make sure that our investment in research, extension, education, career technical education, all are funded at the levels they deserve. We have been coasting on 50-year-ago investments in agriculture. We're literally coasting on the work that happened when we were at our peak investment level, and we have to really work together to increase those investments and make sure that those investments and those universities are partnering with industry to better understand not just what I'm stubbing my toe on today, but how do we accelerate the commercialization of the solutions that will, in fact, help us meet our climate goals, help us meet our sustainability goals, and meet the ongoing need of a hungry world with a fast-growing population. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know you wanted a shorter answer than that. And now that I see my good friend Dan Sumner is here, he's going to really give you the straight scoop.
So one of the things as we're transitioning to our next session is I wanted to point out how important it is for us to have sponsors support us for these events. And I'd like you to share your attention to the screen as we watch a short sponsor video from Western Growers.
Tally Farms got started by my grandfather back in 1948, and he's been a member of Western Growers now for over 50 years. When I think of Western Growers, I think of not only the insurance component, but the advocacy component. Western Growers is there on the front line on a daily basis, fighting for our rights and fighting for our agricultural community. From labor to water, innovation, food safety, employee safety. I can't think of another ag organization that covers all the bases as Western Growers does. Whether you're just a small mom and pop all the way up to corporations, your voice is heard just as loud and just as clear, and that's unique. They care about the people because it's about the people at Western Growers.